Hi folks, this is all the fruit. I'm in the Montes de Anaga on the island of Tenerife in the Canary Islands, in one of the most beautiful landscapes I've ever seen in my life. Since I came here the first time 15 years ago, it hasn't lost anything of its magic. Sorry that the video is quite gloomy, but we have December and even in the Canary Islands they need a bit of clouds and rain, otherwise the islands would become a barren desert. Well, look around. Those cliffs, if you go from the city of Santa Cruz to the Playa de Teresitas, you'll see the lower parts of the cliffs, which even now in December are pretty dry. They're a little bit green now because there were a couple weeks of rain. But they're almost semi-desert-like. When you are driving the Carretera de Cumbre from the city of La Laguna through the island of Anaga, the road is going over there on top of this ridge, you will see mostly laurel forest. Now we are here in between, about 500 meters above sea level, in a valley which is not as steep as some valleys of the Anaga Mountains, but still steep enough so that they did not build the road all the way to the ridge. Well, cliffs and slopes covered with spurges, different native shrubs, invasive cacti and agave. I guess this north-facing slope here is a little bit too dry for agave, but over there on the more south-facing slope, here they are. And last but not least, definitely not least, one of the most iconic symbols of the Canary Islands, a whole grove of the famous dragon tree, Dracaena draco. I got used to seeing the dragon trees just as single survivors on top of the tallest cliffs where neither man nor goat can go. Actually, for the dragon trees of Gran Canaria, for decades, the only touchable evidence the people had was leaves and fruit and bits and pieces which fell down from 100-meter tall cliffs on the ground, and only when they managed to climb up there and see and touch the trees themselves from close up, they realized on Gran Canaria there is a different species. Well, here we are on the island of Tenerife. As I said, most of the dragon trees will be in the Montes of Anaga or Teño, clinging to these high cliffs, usually brushed by wind. Usually there are just 2 or 3 bunches of leaves remaining. But here in the valley of Igueste de San Andres, there is a dragon tree grove growing the way it should. Look at that. Lots of mature dragon trees. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can see 8 dragon trees here. There should be about 10 or 12 in this little nook here. 2 or 3 adult ones in the next little valley. And those are the mature ones. Then there are like about a dozen of medium age, like this here, or this which is growing between the adult trees. And then there are several dozens of young, immature babies. Here they are clinging mostly to the cliff sides. Look, there is one here, there is one here. But there are also several hidden in the vegetation around me. The vegetation here is quite tall because we are in a moist, more or less northern slope, taller than me. Those shrubs might look small, but they are 2 to 3, sometimes to 4 meters tall. So it's quite hard to find a place where I can show you the countryside, the old trees, and the young tree at the same time. It's horribly difficult to climb through those 3-meter tall shrubs. But I had to do it because I've never seen such a beautiful grove on Tenerife. There are 2 similar groves on the island of La Palma, one with even much older trees, but this is the best grove I've ever seen on the island of Tenerife. It covers several hectares, however this area here is the only one with several mature trees. Well, the dragon trees, a family of African trees. Some grow on the African continent, some grow on islands around Africa. On Socotra they are still beautiful growths, but Socotra is close to Arabia. And here in the Canary Islands, yeah, this was always one of the most iconic symbols of the Canary Islands. The Guanche, the natives of the Canary Islands, they worshipped it and also used it. And the Spanish, they also used it and overused it almost to extinction. We don't know if the Guanche actually threatened the native dragon tree groves or if their use was moderate. What did they use it for? Well, since this is a fruit channel, you might guess they ate the fruits. The fruit are not too bad, but nowadays we have such a diversity of exotic fruit, from temperate to tropical fruit here, that nobody bothers to eat it. But the Guanche ate it. Also because they were a Stone Age culture, they loved the soft, you cannot call it wood, the soft pith or spongy inside of the wood, and made a lot of things from it. They also loved the red sap, the so-called dragon blood. They chewed it, they used it in ceremonies, and they mummified their dead with this sap. Well, when the Spanish came, they still liked the sap. They used it as a sort of gum, as a sort of teeth protecting gum. Well, basically, yeah, it was antibacterial. It protected the mummies from decay. Even today you can find mummies in caves high up in the mountains. Not here, those mountains are probably a bit too moist, but in slightly drier mountains they have survived, sometimes over 1,000 years. Later the Spanish used the sap, but they also used the places where those dragon trees grow. This might look to you like a pristine landscape, but look, here is a road. The village of Igueste de San Andres has a lot of immigrants or people who return to the Canary Islands from South America. And so there is quite an interesting mixture of plants growing here. We are here at about 400 meters above sea level. I can see bananas, plantains, mangoes and avocados down there, just 50 meters below me. But if you look here around me, actually this bush here grow over an abandoned orchard. Look at that, a fig tree, another fig tree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 10 meters around me there are 7 peach trees. A little bit further down I saw a plum tree. Well, the Opuntia tomentosa and the Opuntia ficus indica up there, they are also introduced as fruit trees and as hosts for the cochineal louse. There are a couple grapevines around me. There is one here, one there, one here. Somewhere over there I think I saw a black mulberry tree. So this was an orchard until recently. I mean, those peach trees, they don't grow very old. This orchard was probably abandoned in the 21st century, so around the year 2000, and maybe even around the year 2003 when I first came here. Maybe it was still a cultivated place. But they protected the big dragon trees. But maybe because this orchard was abandoned only recently, most of the young dragon trees here grow on the cliffs. Behind this rock, there are 2 old dragon trees, about 4 or 5 of medium age and more than 15 young ones. And then there are single ones around the other valleys and cliffs. It seems to have quite a large environmental amplitude. It will grow here, where there is a lot of water running down the cliff, and also it will, running down the valley, enough water so that they made a fruit orchard here. And as you can see, it will also grow on the exposed south-facing cliffs here and here. A really interesting tree. Well, the Spanish, destroyed most of the groves. They wanted the lands, they wanted the water, they overused them for the gum. The trees were almost extinct. Well, they were also introduced to other parts of the world because, to be honest, it's a very beautiful tree and not so difficult to cultivate. After some time, people realized that the trees are endangered and now they are protected. You are not allowed to cut them down, you are not allowed to dig them out, you are not allowed to harm them in any way. But there are almost no decent groves left. This, apart from the two I know in La Palma, is actually the only one. Look at those beautiful trees. The age of the dragon trees is highly exaggerated. Even the so-called 1,000-year-old tree of Ecot is probably just 400 years old. So I don't know how old those trees are. I don't even know if some environmentalists may be helped by planting a couple of those. I don't know. Maybe there were some works here, but after that I'm sure they spread on their own, because I don't think anybody bothered to plant dragon trees up on the cliffs. The chance for them surviving without watering is just too small. So this is a very rare and maybe unique example for Tenerife of a thriving dragon tree grove. Not threatened by goats, not threatened by agriculture, not threatened by humans. It's quite difficult to reach this place. The countryside is really unique. I don't know why the Anaga mountains are mostly famous for the laurisilva. Yes, it's really great. But those valleys with their 1,000-meter high slopes and sometimes several 100-meter high cliffs, they are also really unique and exciting. Well, folks, I'm not gonna try the fruit from this grove. I think the dragon tree needs every single fruit from those wild trees to further grow this population. I'm gonna make another video when I eat some fruit from a cultivated tree. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful island of Tenerife. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.